Welcome, all my friends, to the sweet spot where IT leaders share their insight with other leaders and others that want to lead. My name is Carlos Vargas. As in every week, I have my two co-hosts. Wait, you guys are together today. I didn't get the invite.
We did. Well, we didn't. We didn't really coordinate. It was this morning, right?
It was entirely coincidental that we literally happened to be in the same town.
Same town, same time. Arrived the same day, in time. Both in time for the recording. So Paul sent me a text this morning. Hey, can we do 5:15? Or sent us. And I went, wait, yeah, I'll be in Boston. Wait, I'll be in Boston. Ooh, maybe we should record live together.
Only one of us are loyal, though. That's the problem.
That's true. I am not at the approved Sweet Spot Loyalty Hotel.
That's correct. It's insane. There's only two reasons why I never stay at a Marriott. Reason number one, I'm at a conference that's included within the Las Vegas Strip, right? Because you don't want to have to walk between Caesar's Palace and some Marriott somewhere. That's number one. Number two, if it's in the Disney hub, right? If it's in a series of Disney hotels, then clearly I'm going to stay at that hotel.
So you guys are in Boston?
Howard does not subscribe to that, clearly based on this week alone.
Okay, so Howard took a new job full time and allowed them to book his travel, and it will not happen again. Perfect. It happened twice, and it will not happen again. The first time was Orlando, right? 3 weeks ago-ish. It was a one day. I didn't really care. Like, I flew in on a Saturday, flew out on a Sunday.
Sure.
Didn't really care so much, and Orlando is huge, and it was really out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
So, okay, fine. This one is like 1.9 miles from here. And while it's the conference hotel, I actually prefer not to be at the conference hotels.
Well, we're both going to a conference, but different conferences this week. Mine is actually at the Hyatt. I'm not staying there because, of course, I'm not loyal to it.
Right.
Now, there are local Marriotts to that particular Hyatt. I just didn't like those either. So now I'm here a solid 20-minute walk away.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
So the conference started today?
Tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Yeah.
There's an event, but I'm not going to that.
No. So why would we do that?
Are you looking forward to the conference? It's one of those conferences that I have to be there because they send me to it, or what is it?
I think we have different reasons. What's your reason?
So I'm excited to be here, but I have to be here. So it's a big partner of ours that's putting on the conference. They invited me out to do like an interview speaking bit thing on stage, on their main stage. So I'm excited about that, but I like the partner. And so I'm excited about kind of using that voice to continue to build the relationship because it's somewhat new for the company. So I'm excited.
Mine's data and technology conference, intellectually appealing, some data mesh stuff I want to sort of get into, but I have a couple people here that are up on stage that I want to appreciate, and then of course we have some local staff here that I want to spend some time with. That's why I'm here.
So I think that we have been in our fair share of conferences. Some good, some bad, some horrible. And I think that it's important for the audience. Why now that we can start traveling again, it's important to probably start cultivating again that skill set. We have spoken in probably almost every continent across all the three of us, in probably almost every language. Have you been in Russia also?
I haven't done Russia.
I haven't, no.
No, I think that
but
Africa.
I've always done it in English.
Yes. I don't speak English well enough to claim a second language, so I'm just going to stick with this one.
That being said, we were in LATAM. You were in that conference, right?
Yeah.
And the audience had headphones, right? And they were getting real-time translation. And I'm not sure how well it went because I only knew one side of what's happening.
They took a lot of notes.
Yeah, there was a lot of notes. Yeah,
and there were quite a few questions afterwards, so I liked it.
But you're right, Carlos. We do go to a lot of conferences and we speak at a lot of conferences, and the time I spent in the last couple conferences in the last couple weeks, I was able to appreciate, underappreciate, and be distasteful of certain types of presentations. So much so that I've created an interesting analogy for the types of presentations, and I'm happy to walk you through that.
Okay, I need to take notes on this. So start.
I don't need to take notes so much as I think I want to get comfortable for this.
Okay. So as I'm listening, right, there are some presentations you enjoy, some presentations you're really into, like you're really listening, some presentations you're on your phone and doing other things, right? And as I was on my phone doing other things, I kind of started to write down what kind of presentations I was hearing. So if you were to create an analogy of a present, and by that I don't mean past and present, I mean a gift, right? Fully wrapped. You don't really know what it is, but it's a present that I'm giving to somebody else. And you were tasked to describe it, either as the giver or the receiver. Lots of different ways you can do that. So the first type of way you can describe it is not knowing much about what's inside of the box and only describing the box, right? You'll go in depth on the wrapping and the ribbon and the process it took to create the wrapper and the hours worth of endeavors of perfecting the lines, how you were cutting it, all that kind of stuff. You were just around the outside because that's as much as you knew. That's sort of presentation number one. And while, that could be interesting for process reasons, it becomes very clear when you're listening to somebody present that they don't have a lot of content, right? It's a lot of context, maybe, but not a lot of content, and therefore it's sort of a superficial understanding of what that present is. That's number one. The second type of presentation is somebody who would describe that present as the toy on the inside, right? Here's the features and functions. Here's what happens when I plug it in. Here's how I play with it. Here's the bells and whistles and dongles on the thing. Here's how it's better than the previous toy I received. That kind of thing, right? It's a very functional description of the thing inside, which might be interesting to somebody who's trying to compare toy 1 versus toy 2, but not necessarily really appreciating the story of the toy. The third type of presentation I've discovered is much more about the buying journey, right? So, I went to Korea and I went into Seoul and I found this nice little store on the side of a back street, and I was looking through and I saw this one thing and it reminded me of you, and I had to go get it, and I bargained for down to $2, and I grabbed it and I brought it all the way home and I wrapped it, and here you go. Awesome. Like that's an interesting, compelling story of how you came about getting this toy. Now, it's kind of like the first one that it's process-wise, but at least it's intriguing and interesting and gives context greater than the present.
But it's personal process.
Yeah, it's personal
right?
process.
Like the first one is very much observational,
yeah,
but still technical.
Right.
So I can technically describe the thing that I am seeing and hope that you see the same thing in your mind's eye.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really have value because I'm not telling you what's inside of it, and it's a present. Therefore, what's inside is the important part.
Right.
Then the second one does the same thing on the inside.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Cool. I no longer get the joy of the opening, which the first one would have given me,
right,
and thus the wonderment of the surprise when I get there. But I have a much better understanding of why this box is brought here, why it was thought to be a present by what's in it.
Right.
And then the third one is everything that matters. Because the truth is, like, when was the last time you got a present that wasn't something you could just get for yourself?
Very true.
Right?
Yeah.
So since most of the time I can just get that stuff for myself, I'm much more interested in why did you pick this for me?
Yeah.
Oh, I picked it for you because I was standing near the checkout and I remembered your birthday was today and I had to get you something.
Right.
Much less interesting than 6 months ago, I was walking through this craft fair.
Right.
And somebody had this thing for sale, and I walked past it 3 times, and it kept bothering me why I kept going past it until I realized it was perfect for you.
Right.
It reminded me of you, and therefore I had to stop and pick it up. Right? Like that story contains all of the value that gets me intrigued. Now I want to find out everything about the thing because the thing now matters to me.
Right. Now what's interesting is that leads to the fourth and final one to which I sort of have discovered. And that's not the story of the giver, but it's the story of the receiver. So it's less about the box, it's less about the toy, it's less about the process of trying to get that toy. It's much more about how I feel receiving it. It's much more about the love I now have for the giver. It's about what I'm going to do with it when I take it home. It's going to be how it's changed my life in some way. It's the passion, it's the sacrifice, it's the emotion of receiving the gift, which is a completely different style of presentation. Now, I felt 3 and 4 were far more interesting than 1 and 2.
Clearly.
But I could see that if it was a very technical conference with deep dive practitioner perspectives, that maybe 1 and 2 are more appropriate.
So I think it depends, because I think there's also a fifth type.
Okay.
And
willing
the
to accept
fifth type is someone opens the box and unveils the Oculus Rift to the world for the first time. Right? Sets this device up, and in the background they have playing a demo of the present they just delivered. So you can see like what people do with it, but not how to use it. Right? People are wearing it and going, wow, but you don't know why.
Right.
There's the mystery. And then the presenter gets up and talks about where they bought the wrapping paper. Right? As in, they've revealed incredibly interesting content and failed to deliver on the promise of that content in any measurable way.
Right.
Right? They've talked about the least interesting thing for 40 minutes.
Right.
Well, the whole time you're going, no. Okay, I get it. It was wrapped beautifully. Move on. I want to see the thing. You've already shown me the thing. Give me the thing.
Right.
And that's the presentation that gives you content on the screen that you're reading and you're going, oh my God, this looks amazing. What the hell is the person talking about? Because it's not that. Nothing they said has been amazing. Nothing they've said has been engaging.
Why are you still talking about the box?
Right. Why are you still talking about the box? Right. And it's cool if the journey is that important. Why are we on the inside of the box slide? Right. Because I find that to be the worst of all of them. You have something interesting to say, but you do not know how to say it. Right. The first one doesn't have anything interesting to say it, but knows how to say it. Right. They're talking about the meticulousness of the wrapping paper and the history behind that particular design and blah 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 blah. Right. And it's interesting, but it's an inch deep, so it doesn't really provide you any value.
Right.
Okay. Like I could take that. If I get excited about it, I can go look it up myself. Smart enough to do that? Fine. Right. The second one assumes that you're a certain percentage along the journey. Right. You've already opened the box. You've already torn off the wrapping paper, and now you're looking at the thing, and now they're talking about the interesting and awesome stuff about the thing, about using the thing. So if we're all at the same point in the journey where we're ready to start using the thing, again, could be interesting. But if we're not all at the same part of the journey, that presenter seldom gets you to the same part of the journey. They just expect you to be at this place. I'm here to talk to you about the new HP NVMe all-flash software-defined storage array. Yeah. Okay, I'm not shopping for an all-flash storage array, so I don't know why I would care about that kind of thing.
I find the first two to be very IQ and the second two to be very EQ.
Much more so.
Right? Even on the first one, I see that as I don't know enough about the inside to describe the inside, so I'm going to focus all my time on the outside.
Sure.
Right? You find that with people who are presenting with C's in their titles. Right? They don't really know what's
entirely too often, yeah.
Right?
Or the opposite. You find a startup CTO that knows absolutely everything about the product, but except why anyone would ever use it for any reason.
Right.
Right. The first two are effectively technology for technology's sake, with different levels of understanding. Right. The first one brings you there. The second one executes, but they never come together.
Right.
You never get to see the full picture. You never get to see, you get to see the inside of the toy. You get to see the outside of the box, but you never get to see the toy built. Right. So I agree. I find them less interesting, especially because we have an infinite amount of information available to us. Right. I can, in 5 minutes, I can fire up a YouTube video on any product I want, click double speed, and I've in 7 minutes learned more than I could have in an hour and a half presentation.
And I think that's fundamentally why I don't enjoy panels, because I don't think you can get much beyond 1 and 2.
Well, it's not just, but that brings us to the other issue.
Okay.
And so that's really content.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're going to deliver on the content, whether you created the content or not. You're going to deliver on content that fits box 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's take all that off the table.
Okay.
right? Because the other piece to it that's really important is the person delivering the content.
Mhm.
You may not even be able to control 1, 2, 3, and 4. You may not be able to totally control what box you're given, right?
Right.
You can. You're CTO of your company. I can.
Sure.
I'm CTO of my company. Was that always true at all facets of your
No.
career?
No, many times I was given something to present, the words, the slides, the
Right.
everything.
Right.
Thou shalt deliver this.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I never obeyed, but I still was stuck with the confines of the box that I was placed in.
Right.
As much as I wanted to fight it, I can only fight it within the box.
Right.
Because it was the box I was given. I couldn't create content that I did not have.
Right.
Right. Which actually might explain why none of my content ever fits the slides, because I get so used to dealing with other people's slides. Anyways,
Right.
I don't want to get off on a tangent. But really, the only thing that you have to bring then is the voice that you create. You own your voice.
Right.
Right. And so that does mean, one, you need to learn how to recognize what box you're being placed in.
Mhm.
Right. Two, you really need to learn how to present, because you can deliver a really, really, really well-liked number one. The whole audience will love it.
Right.
It will inspire them to go do their own research. It'll inspire them to see other content about that thing. It'll interest them, and you'll still have accomplished the goal even without going deep, if you're a good speaker, if you're a compelling speaker, if you've developed a voice that people want to listen to.
Now, is it the speaker or is it the topic? And the only reason why I asked that, because during the exact same conference, Dax Shepard was a presenter.
Okay.
You're familiar with Dax?
Very much.
So he did 2 interviews. Interview number 1 was with the CTO of a shoe company.
Okay.
Interview number 2 was with Kate Hudson.
Okay.
Distinctly different interviews, yet
Yep.
they were back to back, because Dax doesn't have a lot of context nor likely interest in the technology aspects of the shoe company. Yet he has a clearly personal long history with Kate Hudson, to which they had a deep emotional thing, right? It was not the talent of the interviewer at that point.
I
It's
actually
the topic.
disagree.
Is it?
I totally disagree.
You think he would have been, Dax would have been he should have been just as successful with both?
Absolutely, or he should have got up on stage. Like, okay, look, it's Dax Shepard. He's not like a top A-list celebrity.
True.
But he's not on the B-list either. He is, well, he probably is. He's probably a A-list or B-lister, right? He costs a fair amount of money to show up.
I'm sure.
He has a solid reputation. He's married to one of the most beautiful women in Hollywood.
Yep.
Right?
A princess.
A princess. He is probably more famous for what he says online and his personal life than he necessarily is for his professional life.
20 million downloads per putt.
Right. So within the context of that, like,
That's why I
a
keep
person
mentioning his name, just so that.
just so you hopefully gets picked up. We can do a hashtag Dax Shepard in our liner notes.
Correct.
So no, but the important part is, like, at some point he should be able to talk about a shoe company, and I think he probably could. But what did the interviewer do to get him interested in the technology of shoes? Probably nothing. How did the interviewer make it personal to Dax to then allow him
Dax
to make
was
it
the
personal?
interviewer. That's what I'm saying.
Dax was the interviewer?
Dax was interviewing both of those.
Oh, well, that means they didn't give Dax the information that he needed.
I see.
Right? I mean, an actor, you're on that side, you're paying them to read lines. Right?
Fair enough.
So then.
But
yeah,
it felt
right.
to me, at least from a audience member, that he clearly wasn't passionate about topic A as compared
Oh,
to
for sure.
topic B.
For sure. Oh, no, you're going to pay me $50,000 to show up and read the cue cards? I'll show up and read the cue cards. It's fine.
Right.
Versus, you want to get me excited about the shoe stuff, do some prep work with this person so we can have an interesting conversation.
Right.
I'll still do it for $50,000.
Right.
You know what I mean? If you're going to pay me,
And I think
I just think there's enough variables behind that.
the
Unlike what you and I do.
interviewee was significantly different too. He
For
probably wasn't getting the celebrity feedback that Dax kind of requires to riff.
He probably wasn't getting any feedback necessary to riff. It's the CEO of a shoe company,
Right.
right? Like, I haven't seen a lot of compelling shoe company CEOs get up on stage.
CTO, even worse.
Oh, it was the CTO.
Yeah.
Oh, why would they do that?
So So with all that, let me ask you a question. When our audience and the leaders on the technology field start, where do you think that they start their presentation career? It doesn't matter their leadership position, but when they start delivering, do they start on one, two, three, or four?
I think it depends on where you are in in your organization. I think everyone starts at either one or two, right? I think your first path is one or two. One and two, which is the high level and the in depth, both technical, are generally driven by someone else giving you the seeds of the content, in part or in whole, and then you either take an existing talk track or build your own talk track based on that content. I think everybody starts that way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know of anybody that gets the ability to start with their own script and their own content, right? I don't care what actor you are, and if you started at 3, you're still reading someone else's script, right? So I think everybody starts there. The difference, I think, really becomes when you realize just because you're giving someone else's content doesn't mean you have to follow it precisely, and you do need to make it your own. And that's really the value that you add. Having a mouthpiece on stage is not like play on a video behind you and just let it go and just cross your arms if that's what you're going to do, because you're not adding any more value.
But you have to admit that's a leap. Like, I bet there was years, I know for myself, there was years where I felt I couldn't get out of the script. That it was my job to deliver that. And it was uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable to get out of that until I realized that was the only way I was going to be successful.
No,
I don't. To change it into my voice was the only way people would actually want to hear what I had to say.
Yeah, I'm not trying to say that it's easy to do. I'm not trying to say that it's simple. I'm not trying to say any of those things. It's none of those things. It is hard to do. It does require a leap. It does require faith in yourself. It also requires practice and training, right? You're not going to do it 5 times and be successful your first 5 times, right? You very well may have enormous stage fright. Like, you may have all these things that you're dealing with. You may not know how to create it. You may not know how to build a voice.
You're creating your own trough of disillusionment. Well, it's easy, right? If you're presenting somebody else's content, you can do that successfully hundreds of times. As soon as you start putting in your own voice, all of a sudden the quality goes dramatically down.
Correct.
Because you're just not prepared for that.
Well, what I would say is look at any interview where a comedian, really specifically a comedian, talks about how they get their sets together and what they go through to develop 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They'll try 1,000 different iterations, and every single time they'll get to what they consider their perfect set, but it gets stale. Right. So you have to change it. Exactly the same way technology gets stale, so you have to change it. Right. And then the set goes like this. Right. As they fight through what's it going to look like before they again get to perfect set. But the perfect set doesn't last any longer than it did last time, so you got to do it all over again. Right? Everybody's seen it before, so you got to do it all over again. Everybody's seen it before. Yeah. Right? It's the same process. You've talked about it. Because mine are always different. I don't script because I don't work that way. Yeah. But yours are scripted.
Mine are scripted, and they're incremental changes as I test.
Right. But you do the same thing, though.
Yeah.
You'll change, like, no one changes their whole 5 minutes. They change 1 minute of their 5 minutes. They change 1 bit in their 5 minutes. Yeah. And so that everything else would be great, and then that bit will drop. Oh, I put it in the wrong spot. Right. So we'll move it here. Okay, well, that was a little different. Okay, we'll go here. Oh, the timing was off. Oh, the whatever.
Right.
And you do the same thing.
100%.
Right? And until you once again get it back to that point that you're like, okay, this is ready for prime time. Let's go do this.
Exactly.
Right? And you may test it live without it being ready for prime time. You're not likely to test it at GCP.
No.
Right? You're going to test it at a small conference.
That's right.
You're going to test it
small audiences.
30 people.
Right.
Right? You don't test it on a stage of 4,000.
That's right.
On a stage of 4,000, we use the old material.
Yeah, you use the perfect material.
Right. Right. So I mean, I will say, like, there are some techniques. Honestly, stand-up is a great place to do some research. Not that you need to be funny, not that you should try to be a comedian, but their process matches this process closer than anything else.
Yeah.
There's a few other tricks that I recommend when you're getting started. Right. I am a trained actor, from starting at a very young age. My dad was a theater major. We had some history with that in the family. So I recommend start with Shakespeare and learn a monologue. Ideally, one that you like, that you can find online, that you can watch over and over again. Shakespeare wrote an iambic pentameter, which is lyrical in the way it is spoken. And so the pacing all sounds the way it should sound. It is always engaging. the tone, the timbre, the pace is always good. And if you have somebody you can watch and you can understand that piece of Shakespeare, you can then learn to repeat that Shakespeare and find that for yourself. Then do poetry, right? Then find another monologue that you can do, and just get comfortable with written material and finding the pace and finding where the pace is wrong, and then change the word until the pace is right again. I've taught that technique a lot. I find that technique works. That is absolutely the technique that I use. But again, I don't use a script, so I'm now to the point where I find a script distracting.
And for those of us who do not have Howard's intellectual capacity to do any of those things, I couldn't do any of that, I readily admit.
I wasn't trying to make it overly complicated.
I can't do any of that. It's way beyond my capability. But what I can do, and what I could suggest anybody could do, is perfect a story of your own that you've told time and time again. You might have interpreted over time, and it grows in terms of the substantive value. But there's a story in your life to which you could perfect that usually is kind of funny, right? Some vacation you went on that did something, and use that as the baseline and keep telling that story. Modify it as you need for it to become something interesting, and then try to apply that story to some unique circumstance in your work. See if that helps.
So there's a very important component to storytelling, especially when you're telling a story about yourself. It requires two things. One, it cannot be 100% true. You have to flex it a little bit. You have to make it a little bit larger than life.
Yep.
And two, you must be the butt of the joke. Right? You can't be the absolutely sung hero of the story that you are telling. Right? Make yourself the funny part of the joke, or at least include it in the funny part. Right? Rub a little dirt on yourself through the story, so that when it's finished, if you do come out shining, you got the tarnish rubbed off a little bit. Mm-hmm. Laugh at yourself. Other people will then laugh with you, not at you. Right?
That's so true. And I don't know if we would talk about that a couple of years ago, but there's a course in Udemy that's called The Hero's Journey. And it was made by these guys that actually directed in Hollywood. And they teach specifically that concept, how to help you put yourself into the story and not be the hero from the beginning, because now it doesn't make no sense.
Yeah, you can never start as the hero. Right? No one can come along with you if you start as the hero. If you start as the hero, what you're saying is you're better than the audience from the very beginning. If you start as a member of the audience at the same level as the audience, you laugh at yourself. They can then see themselves as you. They can now see themselves in that position, and your hero's journey becomes their hero's journey through the power of this amazing human thing called empathy. And immediately you have an excellent story. Immediately you're seen as one of them, but one of them that moved to where they want to be.
That's actually one of the more challenging parts of starting a presentation. So not only do you want to do that, absolutely, but you also have to set up yourself as being a credible actor.
Correct.
Right. So in combination, you've got to say, I'm interesting enough to listen to, but I'm humble enough to help go along the journey with you. That is a very difficult thing to bring together at once. Right?
Yeah, so you can start with your bona fides, and then you can tell the story of how you got your bona fides through a lesson that was hard to learn.
Right.
You're right.
Yeah, it's not just exceptional intellect. It's
no. It's
dumb
the trials
luck.
And tribulations that come along. It's the dumb luck. It's the mistakes you made and what you learned from. Right. I mean, let's be honest, right? And I know I've said this before on this podcast. I don't remember the successes that I've had, but I can go through every single massive freaking failure.
Sure.
And not because there were zero. There were quite a few. Right. I think we all can. I think we can all, like, if we all closed our minds, if everyone listening to this at this point closed your eyes and just thought for a second, what is that one failure point that still bothers you today? What is that one time you messed up? You trusted someone. You did something. You clicked the wrong button. Right? Whatever it happened to be. You deleted something you weren't supposed to delete. You turned something off in the middle of production that was the live system and not the test system. Whatever it happens to be, right? It could be totally personal. What was that one thing? You don't need any more time. You've already thought of it. Right?
Absolutely.
Right? There's 5 that jump into my mind.
Carlos is ready with
He is. He's good. But tell that story, right? Because everyone has one. You're not a failure because you have one of those. Everyone has those. Right? Now you're human. And now you can tell the story of how you learned from that, you overcame, and that launched you on this journey to become this expert. Right?
Yep.
So I know that we were talking about presentations at conferences, but how about when they come to deliver the presentation and you're the vendor and you're delivering that presentation towards a customer or someone that you're trying to do business with? Do we have the same, let's say, 4 buckets?
I do it exactly the same way as I do it on a big stage. There is no difference
Or
for
the
me
bucket?
whatsoever. The only thing that I do that's any different, Carlos, is I try to make it a little personal for the customer, but otherwise, no, I do it exactly the same way.
So, agreed, but I do perceive those 4 buckets. So if I was the buyer, I have seen those 4 different types of presentation styles. And again, while the first style would suggest that it's somebody in the sales hierarchy, right? The CRO is presenting, the wares of the customer, wares of the vendor, which is meaningless to me, or it's very down technical, practical, which again is not interesting to me. It might be interesting to Howard, but certainly interesting to me. What was more interesting to me was, well, how am I going to feel by implementing this thing? Right? What's the advantage to the team, the people, the culture of the organization by this thing you're trying to present to me? That's what was most appealing. That's what I was listening for.
Yeah, how are you going to make me a hero if I buy this thing?
Right.
That's literally it.
Yeah.
Right. I will say, drop 3/4 of your slides. Drop 8/10 of your slides. Right. I get that you want to give the customer a bunch of information, and you may be told, "Hey, we use these as a leave behind." You know what's perfect for that? Put them in something called an appendix. After your closing slide, have another slide that says appendix, and then you can put all those slides in there as reference. I do that all the time, right? There are conferences I present to that are not professional conferences. I think we've talked about them. I generally, my last slide is a link to my GitHub that actually just contains the PowerPoint. And the PowerPoint is full of all the reference material that's been used, so people can click through it. You can absolutely do that professionally. When I get up on stage, I generally have 4 slides. If I've made the content, it's 4 slides. I don't need more than 4 slides. I don't care if it's 3 hours. 4 slides. Remember, the presenter's the content, not the slide deck.
I'm pretty sure they could just be a white slide with no background.
I remember the presentation that you did with the windmills.
Oh, yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah.
That like everybody was like, where did he get that slide? And he talked for the whole presentation about the windmill. But that is really interesting for our audience. 4 presentation types. Last question. Should the leaders learn those 4 styles first and then learn when to use them? Or should they only learn 1 or 2 of them?
I think you should find what you're comfortable with and present it. Figure out if it fits in a box, figure out what box it fits into afterwards, right? So the first thing you need to do is get comfortable, right? Get comfortable developing that voice. Get comfortable being on stage. Develop a patois. Develop something that sounds good to your own ear and those close to you, right? Then you can be introspective about it. And the point where you get introspective about it is the point where you go, okay, well, I just delivered that in this style. Let's call that style 2. Right? And now you can think about, do I want to stay in style 2? What does my job require? And what does the job that I want require? Right? Because it may only, like, if you're not a people leader, right, and you're a junior, and you're a sysadmin, style 2, that's where you're going to live. You're just going to live in style 2 right now, right? You're going to stay in style 2 for a little while. Senior engineer, you probably should be in styles 1 and 3 more, right? you really should now be getting into the journey and a little more out of the technical. But you still probably need number two, the technical, when you're delivering to your team, right? It really depends on what audience do you find yourself in, and are you comfortable enough to have more to straddle more than one box? Because that's not an easy thing either.
I think it's very difficult to be versatile in this respect. Very, very, because you have a personality, and that's what's coming out in your presentation. And if your personality is superficial, your personality is technical details, if your personality is storytelling from either the process of getting this gift or the emotion of receiving this gift, I'm not sure you could easily cross even based on the audience. However, at the very least, perfect the style to which you do well at versus trying to poorly implement four of them.
Yeah, the secret to success is simply being an expert at the thing. So I watched a video earlier today, and it was, I think the title was like "Holy Crap" or something. I'm happy to send it to you. It's awesome, and it is
It'll be in the show notes.
It is a person in a tent, and it's at night, so it's a night vision camera, so it's just grayscale, and they are sleeping, and there are two cheetahs or three cheetahs in there with them, and all of a sudden the cheetah gets up and starts to walk towards the person, and they kind of startle. And you're like, oh, was somebody sleeping in like Africa and she just wandered in and this seems like a good place to sleep? Because somebody's going to die. Like, I don't want to watch somebody die. And then the cheetah went over and laid down with that person and cuddled with that person.
Needed some warmth.
So it turns out that person's job is to sleep with the cheetahs because cheetahs get anxiety at night. And he is their emotional support human. And he calms the cheetahs so the cheetahs can sleep well.
Interesting.
My point being, if you are an expert at a thing, there is a job for that where you can be very, very successful. If you're an expert at just sleeping with cheetahs, there is a job for you. Find out what you're an expert at and really develop that craft and hone that craft and really show your expertise and show it on stage. You will be well rewarded in whichever of the four boxes you sit in, or a fifth one that we didn't describe, or a sixth one, or a seventh.
Title of the pod, Sleeping with Cheetahs.
I definitely gonna add that one. Well, my friends, it's been awesome to see you again. Looking forward to see when we can see each other in person again. This was awesome because definitely your presentation style, it's what gonna open doors for you. When you master it, you can keep growing. And it's really important, like you mentioned, to learn where you are in your career so you can do one style and practice the next one so you can grow. So my friends, we'll see you on our next episode.